Hello, everybody. You've got Rhonda and Jennifer from the compliance department. We're here to discuss some challenges that we're experiencing in the log department from the changes that were made September of 2020 on the new split breaks. So we know that the old rule let you do an 8 and 2, the 8 paused the 14, but the 2 did not. Now we can do a 8 and 2, a 7 and 3, and both breaks pause the clocks. But we're experiencing some challenges. You agree, Jennifer?
Absolutely, yes.
So I just kind of wanted to share a couple examples with you guys in case you had any questions on how what are our challenges and what's causing these issues. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to share a log graph for a driver that had a challenge using his split. So this driver wanted to go home, and you can tell from the graph he started driving at 15:49, which means his 14-hour clock would end at 5:49 the next morning. He paused his clock for 5 hours and 36 minutes, so that extends his clock until 11:25. So he goes ahead and drives on home. And now once we're doing a split, we need to complete our break of at least 7 hours in the sleeper berth. Well, since we're at home, we don't go to the sleeper berth. We go inside and enjoy our family time and go off duty. So at this point, since we didn't finish our break in the sleeper berth, it voided our split and caused a log violation of 3 hours and 39 minutes starting at 6:13. So definitely a challenge. If you know you're going home and you know you can't complete the split transaction, we'll have to choose not to pause the clock.
And then I have an example for you as well.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. So I'll get mine pulled up here. So what we are looking at is this driver. He had started his day just before 12 noon. So his clock was going to run out at 2 a.m. He also paused his clock for almost 6 hours here, getting his break in. And thus he was going to be able to run until 8 a.m. Well, he made it to the customer, logged his unload, and then they took 3 hours to unload. And at that point, they kicked him off the property. They would not let him stay. He did not have full hours back. He didn't have any hours back. He was negative. So he used personal conveyance to leave their property, which then interrupted his sleeper berth time. The rule with the sleeper berth is it has to be uninterrupted sleeper berth. So he then had all of this time go into violation because the customer had kicked him off the property and he had to click out of sleeper berth to do so. What you also notice on him is he had almost 6 hours in before he had to leave to get to the customer. So it did pause at that full length of time, but since it wasn't the 7 hours, it treats it as the smaller portion. So it treats it as a 3 hour. In reference to this, he still had to complete 7 hours in sleeper berth to get the rest of his time back. So I will unshare my screen now.
Yeah, very good. Those are some two major issues that are happening to not just one or two drivers. All the drivers this is challenging for all of the drivers. Even some of my very best drivers are having a hard time understanding, well, how am I going to know if they're going to kick me off, or how am I going to know? I just assumed that if I went home and was home for 34 hours, why couldn't that break count as my same as an 8-hour sleeper berth? But OmniTrax can't do that. It's a computer. It doesn't know it has to look for that 8-hour or 7-hour break in the sleeper berth uninterrupted. And in my opinion, if you choose to leave that box checked at all times, you're telling DOT that you're doing a split break every day. Plus, unknowingly, if you leave it checked and it pauses your clock unknowingly, sometimes you guys are busy and tired and you're driving and you think, oh, I've got this time on my clock and I'm just going to finish what's on my clock. And then we forget to finish the split break transaction, and then again causing really ugly log violations. And we've got some really good drivers that have no log violations ever, and then this is causing this issue. So My personal opinion, I would not leave that box checked. If I was going to pause my clock, I would make sure, okay, I'm pausing my clock. Where can I take my 7 or 8 hour break in a sleeper berth uninterrupted? If that's not a challenge, then the split will work for you perfectly.
And you can absolutely do it either direction. You can do the 7 first, which makes it so much easier because the 3 can be off duty, can be sleeper berth. Like you have a bunch more options with the smaller break than you do with the long uninterrupted break. The other question we're getting a lot from drivers is how do I know what time I'm getting back? Once my clock is paused, how do I know? So what you're doing is however long your first break is, it literally hits pause on your clock once you've had the minimum length of time break in. So if you were at the customer for 2 hours exactly, you were off duty, then it treats it once you reach 2 hours as if it paused it when you first got to that customer. So whatever you had left on your 14, whatever you had left on your 11, everything is showing what you had left. Then it's counting you down to what you have left. Before that clock runs out, you have to take the second break. Once you take the second break, then it does a reset again, where it again asks, okay, so he did this break here, he did this break here. This time in the middle is coming off of what you're picking up here. So it is definitely, definitely confusing to figure out, but your unit is going to walk you through it exactly. So you do kind of want to believe whatever's on the screen. If it shows something's wrong, usually it's right. Usually something's wrong. So
And drivers don't understand, well, I didn't have a log violation. It didn't tell me I was in violation. And it won't, because at the time that you're driving, you're not in violation. The violation appears after the fact when you don't complete the split properly. And it doesn't
yes.
do anything to the 11, only pauses the 14.
Mhm.
So if anybody has any questions, there's 8 of us in compliance. The phone number is 417-447-2124 and press 1 for logs. And we'd be glad to answer any questions for splits.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate all of you.
Yes, me too. Have a good day.